And good evening and welcome to tonight's broadcast. I'm Jonathan Higgins from our studios right here in Cincinnati. You're watching Train Aficionado Live. So it's going to be a great show. We're talking about the 160 and 260DN. These are the new radios that were released just a little while ago from Uniden. And these are going to be the future of probably the radios that rail fans are going to use when the railroads go to digital. As of right now, a vast majority of all the Class 1s for the main line and the dispatch channels and the road channels are analog, but eventually when they do migrate over to digital, this will probably be the radio of choice. So a lot of people have purchased the radios as of recently, so we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about these radios in detail, as you can see right on the screen. So if you're not familiar with these radios, the portable, the handheld radio, which is on the right side, is the BCD160DN, and then the base mobile is the 260DN. So what we're going to talk about tonight is setting up these radios to monitor the railroads. So a lot of great information tonight during this broadcast, so definitely this may be one that you may want to rewatch. We're going to go over, how to lay out the programming on the radio. We're not going to dive into how to program the radio during this broadcast, but we're going to talk about how to lay it out inside the radio, to make sense and make it so you can get the most out of these radios. So let's take a look at tonight's slide deck. So setting up your scanner for the railroads, the Uniden Bearcat BCD160 and 260DN. So let's take a look at these radios. So I want to remind you that we do have events going on for Train Aficionado, and the next event that we have is Sugar Shack by the Tracks. This is right here in Cincinnati. There's all the details on trainaficionado.com/events. This is in Laughlin, Ohio. And this is a really cool spot because you can have ice cream and watch trains at the same time. So Wednesday, May the 29th. Yes, a Wednesday. The 5th Wednesday of the month. Typically, I take it off, but I will be rail fanning this evening. I may go live from there for about 15 minutes or so at 8 o'clock. I haven't decided yet. I will let you know on the social media channels, Facebook and Instagram, and of course on X as well, if I do decide to go live for a short show from Sugar Shack by the Tracks. So it's a rail fan meetup. So definitely, if you're in the area, stop by. All the details are on the website, trainaficionado.com/events. And this is a part of the Buckeye Bluegrass Express 2024 tour. And there'll be more spots on the event page as we make them available for more rail fan get-togethers. Segueing to the next one. Winton Place is the next one. This is right outside of Cincinnati, downtown that is. That will be Saturday, June the 1st. So that'll be the first Saturday the same week. From actually, it's going to be 8 a.m. until noon. That should be 8. But if you want to show up at 9, by all means you can. I'll be there from 8 a.m. until noon. Saturday, June the 1st. Really cool spot. If you don't know where this is, go to trainaficionado.com/events. And we are looking for your favorite rail fan spots. So we want to do a show, and hopefully we'll get enough of those to be able to do a show. So we want you to submit your photographs and a brief description of your favorite rail fanning spot. If you've got a favorite rail fanning spot, email it to railfanspots@trainaficionado.com. That's railfanspots@trainaficionado.com. So we'll have a virtual Buckeye Bluegrass Express 2024 tour of your favorite spots throughout the country or around the world. So we're looking forward to that as well. July, I haven't done anything as of yet. I got a few things in mind. I may actually do, depending on what's going on in my life, I may actually have a couple of them in July. I'm thinking about doing something at night, which would be kind of cool, to be able to see trains after dark. So I'm looking forward to releasing more dates on the website, which hopefully I'll be doing some of that this weekend, adding in some more things on the schedule. So make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Train Aficionado. And then, of course, the website is trainaficionado.com. So Facebook, X, as it's now known, Instagram, and, of course, hit the subscribe button since you're watching us right now on YouTube. The swag shop is always open 24/7. Get your official Train Aficionado swag at trainaficionado.com, and you can click on the store menu button, and it'll take you right to the store. This helps us to upgrade equipment and keep us going with our professional software that we stream this broadcast twice a month, of course, here, and then also on the Scanner Guys as well. So if you're watching for the very first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate that. All right, let's get to the broadcast at hand. We're talking about setting up your scanner for the railroads, and particular attention to the Uniden Bearcat BCD160DN and 260DN. So these radios are, of course, phenomenal, work really well. I would highly recommend it. I've started using my production 160DN, which is right here. This is the smiley antenna, which I have on the scanner. Works great. I'm going to be ordering one of these for my good friend Nick, which lives in Glendale, Ohio. So this antenna is a huge hit. I would highly recommend it. Actually got recommended to me by a viewer of the broadcast. So let's take a look at the slide deck and get right into the topic of discussion. If you're joining us for the very first time, we will have the slideshow presentation. We'll answer your questions right after that, and then we'll wrap the show. So typically we go about an hour. So if you're watching for the very first time, welcome. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's give you a little bit of details about the 160 and 260, the very basics. So it's a bank-driven scanner. So what that basically means that it has 10 banks, 100 channels per bank, for a grand total of 1,000 channels. So this is pretty much like the 125 AT. If you've owned one of those scanners, it's very much like it. Instead of 500 channels, it's got 1,000. So what does that all mean, banks? So it's kind of like folders on your computer. So you have folder number 1, folder number 2, folder number 3, and then you're able to store a bunch of files in there. In this case, 100 little files. And what you'd be actually doing is programming 100 channels in each bank, if that makes sense. So it's a bank-driven scanner, pretty simple to program. A lot of the other radios that are a part of the Uniden product line have a complicated memory system. The reason being is they accommodate what we call trunking. This is a system that has multiple towers. It's repeaterized. Rather than communicating on a given frequency, they have what they call talk groups. For us on the rail fanning side, we don't need to worry about trunking or talk groups or any of that business, so we want to probably stick with a fairly basic radio, such as the 125 AT or the 160 or 260 DN, as we're talking about on tonight's broadcast. So the programmable railroad channels that you can program in with the 160 and 260, of course, the analog channels. Yes, it's a digital radio, but it also supports analog. So all your channels that you're currently monitoring on a given scanner can be also monitored on these new radios. So basically the channels 1 through 97 you can monitor on this radio. What it brings to the table is if any yards or short lines are running on digital, which is known as NXDN, then this radio will also accommodate that as well. And then we're going to talk about the data channels, the FRED, in the rear of the train that sends data communication to the front of the locomotive. So if anything goes wrong with the air hoses and what such, we'll talk about those data channels in a little bit more detail. Also, you want to definitely take a look at the link that I have here, which is also in the product description. Not the product description, the video description is the trainaficionado.com/AR-channels. That is all the AAR channels on the website. We're going to be talking about those a lot. If you're interested in the 160 or 260DN, there is an affiliate link for both of those radios, along with software that's available for the radios as well. So many of you probably not familiar with the Association of American Railroad Channels. These are the channels that the railroads use, basically 1 through 97. So these channels allow the railroads to kind of have a universal list of channels that they use. So essentially, for instance, the same railroad channels are used by all the railroads, and their radios are set up, so channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, all the way to 97 are the same. So typically the cab radio will have a channel selector, so they'll be able to go to channel 22 and be able to communicate on that particular channel. And then, of course, as they switch to a different railroad, they can switch the frequency, or channel, I should say, to a different channel. So no matter what locomotive they're in, they've got a cab radio that's able to be scrolled through all the channels that are in there and to be able to pull them up. So that allows the foreign power that goes through in various areas, to be using the same radio. So it's pretty much, 97 channels, and you're able to do that. So 97 channels, you're able to do something pretty cool on your radio, especially on the 160 and 260DN. So remember that a bank can store up to 100 frequencies. So for instance, bank 1, channel 1 on the scanner, you could put in AAR channel 1. Channel 2, you can put in AAR channel 2. Channel 3, same thing, channel 4, channel 5, so on and so forth. This allows you to be able to set up your scanner just like they're two-way radios. So if you want to jump to channel 22, you have the ability to do that. So what you would do is just hit the hold button on your scanner, type in on the keypad 22, and then hold would bring you to that particular channel. So if you were listening to some communication on the road channel, and basically the crew said they were switching over to channel 22, you could do the switch with them. So you could hop over to channel 22 and hear whatever traffic is going on that particular channel, and then of course return back to scan. You can also use this bank as a service search as well, where you're scanning all 97 railroad channels. This allows you to be able to scan them all and be able to find other frequencies that are used by your local railroad. So I would strongly recommend on the 160 and 260DN in Bank 1, matching up those AAR channels with the channel numbers on the scanner. So really simple, as you can see here. If you're looking for more information on these AAR channels, they're actually listed on the Train Aficionado website, and there's a link in the description of this video as well. So this is really something that I've been using lately. It works really well, and I greatly appreciate it. But there are over 97 channels. I'm just showing the 4 channels here. So there's also these railroad data channels. So the DPUs and the head end and end of train have devices to be able to communicate to each other. And typically what this sounds like is a series of beeps. So if you were in a rural area, you would be able to hear the end of train. Typically, it'll be a little beeps over the radio. So if you're not able to hear a lot of communication over the scanner, you'd be able to hear a series of beeps. So that would basically indicate that there is a train within a close proximity to you because it's a low-powered transmitter. So you may or may not know what direction it's coming in, but you at least know that there is a train in a close proximity to you. So along with the head end and end of train device, the DPUs have a similar thing as well, where they're communicating to the main locomotive with any issues. So the data that's going over the radio is in the beeps that you would hear on those channels. Now, if you're located somewhere by a yard, you don't want to program in these channels. And you want to put this in a separate bank, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But these are on the UHF channels, as you can see here, 152, 157 megahertz. So this brings us to NXDN. So these are the same channels that you would typically monitor the AAR channels that you would monitor from channel 1 to 97 to 107 to 196. So these channels are also used on the digital side of things. Wait a minute, I said from 107 to 196. So these channels are actually the splintered channels. So when they went from wideband to narrow, this opened up additional frequencies in between the frequencies. So this allows the railroads to have a whole bunch more frequencies that can be assigned to the railroads. So their AAR channels are 308 and 488. So you're able to tune your scanner to those same frequencies as well. What I would recommend is banking those into a separate bank in this radio and make it so it receives digital NXDN only. So when you program your radio, line these up with the channel numbers on the scanner. Chris, I see your messages. Those channels are used in some parts of the country, 1 through 4. Thank you, Chris. And they're also used in Canada as well. Sometimes they're used for communication in between the trucking companies and the railroads. All right. So AAR channel numbers 308 and 488 are the channel numbers that are assigned to the NXDN digital channels. So if they say they're going to go to 322, then you're able to switch to 322 on your scanner if you align the programming up. So this allows, you to be able to tune into these channels. So as I said, program these into a separate bank, which we're going to talk about, and then assign these channels so they receive digital only. So the reason being that you want to reprogram these channels into the radio again, because when you have it so it receives all, it takes the radio a few minutes to process going from analog to digital. So you may miss a couple seconds of the audio when it's transitioning from analog to digital. So it's going to take a few seconds for that to happen. You may miss some of the radio transmission. So what I recommend doing is programming the digital version of these frequencies in, so it's basically programmed in NXDN mode search. So as soon as it pops on, it'll be digital. On the analog side of it, make it so those channels 1 through 97 and then 107 to 196 be analog only. So some pro tips right there. So NXDN, I'm always getting asked all the time, when are the railroads going digital? I don't know. It's going to be a collective effort because a lot of railroads are using other railroads, and you can't go digital when some of the people that share that railroad line are still using analog equipment. So everybody's got to upgrade their equipment. The radio infrastructure also has to be upgraded from analog to digital. There's a lot to this process. So there are some short lines that are using it, such as the Essex steam train in Connecticut. I believe also the train that's up in North Conway, they're using NXDN. And there's a couple of yards that are using NXDN. I know the Bellevue yard that's up in northern Ohio, they have a couple of channels that they're using NXDN. So it's pretty much local for the most part. But yeah, you've got these digital channels, so definitely keep that in mind. So quick access to the AAR channels is very simple. I kind of covered that in an earlier slide, but basically, if you know the channel number, whether it's the splintered channels or the main set of 97 channels, so if they say, the dispatcher tells them to switch over to channel 54, so you can just go on your radio, just hit hold 54 and then hold. It'll bring you right to that channel, which is really easy when you take the time to program the radio up in line with the AAR channel numbers. So you're able to do that as well. So quick access, that's what I call this. So here's how I would lay out the programming on the brand new 160 and 260DN. So what I would do is put in the AAR channels 1 through 97 lined up with channels 1 through 97 on the radio. So that would be in bank 1. In bank 2, we would put in those splintered channels, which is the 107 to 197. And you can line it right up in the radio, super easy. Now, they don't have anything that's in the 200s channel-wise. So in bank 3, a bank 3 channel would start with 201. So put in your home railroad channels. For me, on my radio, it's basically the railroad frequencies that are in or around Cincinnati. So why do I do that when I'm already programming in all the railroad channels in banks 1 and 2? It takes it longer to go around the horn when you're programming in 97 channels. So you're thinking of it scanning up and down from 1 to 97 and then going back if I just have bank 1 on. Versus in my home bank, that may have about 12 frequencies. So it's a lot faster to scan through 12 frequencies than it is 97, or about 200 if I'm doing bank 1 and bank 2. For the digital side of things, I have my radio programmed up in bank 4 and bank 5. The NXDN assigned channels from 307 to 488. So if I know that I'm trying to search out, those NXDN radio transmissions, I have those two banks on, bank 4 and bank 5. So that frees up several banks. So we have bank 6, 7, 8, and 9. We're able to program those up for other rail fanning spots. For me, maybe I go down to Charlotte, North Carolina. So maybe I have in bank 6 the frequencies that are for Charlotte. Maybe I go to Altoona, Pennsylvania frequently, so in Bank 7, I have all the frequencies for the Altoona area. Bank 8, maybe I go up to Boston, so that'll be bank number 8. And then maybe I go up to Chicago, and that'll be bank number 9. Now, those data channels that I mentioned earlier, put them in their own bank. So you'd put it in bank 0. So you can see here that this is the 10 banks of how I would recommend programming your radio. So let's review. So the analog channels, the AAR channels, 1 through 97, bank 1. Also the analog splinter channels, 107 to 197 in bank 2. My local railroad channels in bank 3. And then my NXDN channels in bank 4 and 5. And then in 6, 7, 8, and 9, those would be my favorite rail fanning spots. And then the scanner, of course, when I'm just running one of those, it's going to scan through those channels really fast. For example, in Altoona, there's probably like 3 or 4 frequencies that I would monitor. So in bank 7, as I mentioned, I would put Altoona in there. It's going to scan through 3 frequencies really fast. So that's why I recommend, when you're in areas that you know the frequencies, program them into its own bank, because it'll scan a lot faster than going through 200 channels versus 3 channels. So these banks can be turned on and off, and how you do that on the scanner is, while it's scanning, you press the 1 button to turn it on or turn it off, and that's as easy as it is. So when the scanner is scanning, you can turn banks on and off. On the scanner screen, you will see the banks that are turned on will be illuminated towards the bottom of the screen. So that's what I would recommend for programming. So this may be a great slide for you to kind of take a screenshot of and try to set up your radio in a similar style. We're going to answer some of your questions right now during this broadcast, so feel free to post those in the comments. I'm going to read through some of those questions. The photograph there is my favorite heritage unit, the Virginian, which was my first heritage unit that I've ever photographed. I actually got it last Tuesday. I went out rail fanning because I knew it was in the area. It just recently got freshly repainted. See how beautiful it looks. And this was traveling south into Cincinnati off the Dayton district. So I was able to get a really cool photo of this. And you can actually see in the photograph, if you look towards the bottom of the locomotive, you see a rail fan taking a photograph of the locomotive as I'm taking a photograph of the locomotive. So we probably got into each other's shots. So he was on the other side of the tracks and I was on this side of the tracks. So this was really cool to be able to see this locomotive here. So ask your questions right now. I'm going to go through a couple of slides and then we'll go into some of your questions and then go from there. So it's been a great week. I actually took some time off last week, Thursday, Friday, and Monday. Spent some time with my dad. He was up here in Cincinnati. We were able to do a class, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I was able to capture my first CSX heritage unit. So my first CSX heritage unit was the Chessie system, 1973. So a rail fan actually told my dad that it was coming through. So we moved positions and it was heading on to the Indianapolis subdivision. So I wanted to get it over the railroad bridge heading out of Hamilton. So I ended up getting a photograph of it, and I was able to get a nice side profile, as you see there, and then I was able to get it going over the bridge. So this is a bridge on the Indianapolis subdivision, CSX. But yeah, this was my first actual, in the wild, capturing a heritage unit on the CSX side of things, one of these actual painted heritage units. I'm really excited to capture a few more of these in the summer. I want to thank everyone that attended the scanner programming clinic in Cincinnati. That took place on Saturday, May the 11th. It was a great class. We had the room filled with people. We talked about how to manually program the 125 AT and also using computer software. We talked a little bit about the 160 and 260DN. So it was a really great class. I'm so excited that people were able to attend. Great turnout. I plan on doing some more classes, probably in the fall. So feel free to let me know if you're in the Cincinnati, Ohio area and you'd like to attend one of these classes. That'll be great. I plan on doing some virtual classes as well. So if you're not in the area, we may do a virtual interactive class in the near future, probably in the fall when I'm not so busy trackside rail fanning when it's cold. So I'll be wanting to spend some more time inside. So that's the Scanner Programming Clinic for rail fans. It was for an hour and a half, and people hung out for 3 hours. And then we actually had an event now I can talk about. So a lot of you probably heard that, we had an event after, which we couldn't talk publicly about. It was a private event up and in Tower A. So that was a lot of fun being up in Tower A. So I was there until about 10 o'clock on Saturday night because the Tower A event took place from 6 p.m. until 9. And then, of course, we shut it down just a little after 9. And then we were out of the terminal about 10 o'clock. So it was quite a great day. And if you're not aware of it, Saturday was National Train Day as well. So let's get to your questions and comments. John's asking to turn the 160DN power button. So you just push and hold on there. So about 5 seconds, that will power the radio on. I can actually do it on camera. So the hold button's right down here in the corner. So you just press it. You hear the beeps. It's going to boot up, and then it's going to start running. To power it down, same thing. Push and hold for about less than 5 seconds. If you want to have, I have to turn it back on. If you want to have the backlight on, it is a quick tap. So that's relatively simple. All right, so that takes care of that. Will the Smiley antenna work on the 400 megahertz frequencies? Yes, it will work. Keep in mind, of course, it's tuned to the 160 megahertz, but it will work for the 400 megahertz. Keep in mind that it's a low-powered transmitter, so it's going to be in close range of you, so you shouldn't have any problems picking up. It's not like it's a transmitter that you're trying to pick up from a long distance. It works very well. I've used the Smiley antenna, and I've scanned those data channels with no problem. Let me take a look at some of the other comments here. Chris is going to Chicago from June the 12th through the 16th. He'll be bringing his SDS 100. He wants to listen to Amtrak. Let's see. You may be able to change, so Jerry is asking about changing the modulation on the service searches. I'm thinking that you may be able to customize that. I'm not 100% certain. I think there is some capability of doing it with the Uniden free software. I would have to check into that. Great question about that. Yeah, you can use a scanner to, of course, hear the trains. You have to be in close proximity because the railroads don't have repeaters typically, and it's line-of-sight communication. So if you don't have a railroad near you where there's a lot of radio traffic, you may or may not hear anything on the scanner. It all depends. Jim's mentioning that the 160DN works great on DMR. Yes, it does. I actually monitored the Cincinnati Union Terminal security. Runs DMR along with their cleaners. They actually have a single conventional digital DMR channel there. That works really well. Yeah, so there's definitely some talk about the SDSs. They're quite expensive. The 160 and 260DN are cheaper, so that's probably going to be more likely what rail fans are going to be leaning towards when they do upgrade their scanner. The 125 AT is still the Cadillac of scanners, so definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, Jerry, I see your other question there. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. I mean, you can do what I mentioned during tonight's broadcast versus using those service searches by using the banks to be able to program those frequencies in. So the digital ones would be in banks, what was it? Bank 4 and 5, and then you just program those channels in. You can pretty much copy and paste it from my website into BuTel software and then change the modulation so it's digital only versus receive all. And that's what I would recommend doing it. So the 160 and the 260 actually work fairly well. So I was using my Anytone. Many of you know that I use an Anytone two-way radio along with my scanner. Reception was pretty much matched on the two. I have the same exact antenna on both radios, so I was pretty impressed with the 160DN. It worked really well this past weekend. I spent a lot of time using it. Just make sure if you're going out and about, bring some extra batteries. You'll definitely need them. I addressed Chris's question about the channels 1 through 4. Depending on where it is, those channels will typically be used, maybe not by a road channel or dispatch, but maybe from communication. I've seen write-ups where it's trucking companies use it to communicate to the railroads, so definitely keep that in mind. The 125 AT does have the volume. What you do is push down and turn clockwise to turn it up, push it the other way counterclockwise to turn it down. So yes, there's volume control. You have to push down and turn. This is a multi-function knob. So channel selection, you just scroll without pushing down. When you're in the hold, when you want to adjust the volume, push down and turn. And then if you want to adjust the squelch, it's a function, and then push down and turn, either clockwise or counterclockwise on that. Typically, yes, we kind of covered, line of sight, communication. Typically, you're going to hear the dispatcher a lot of times on the road channel. You may hear the crew of the train when they're in close proximity of you. Smiley antenna works great. Highly recommend that. One viewer mentioned he almost bought, or she almost bought, the 125 AT. Until watching the video, they went with digital, so probably with the 160 or 260. Les is in the house. A whole bunch of people in the house tonight. Let's see here. Adam. Yeah, Adam, I think you sent, I replied back to your email about the maritime broadcast. Definitely look out for that. I was looking to see, what your availability is for being able to do that with the Scanner Guys show. Let's see. I'm just taking a look. Sorry. I mean, this is me doing the show by myself, so I have to look through the comments. John B is asking, how well does the DMR and NXDN work? Works pretty well. So keep in mind, it's a conventional radio, so it's a non-trunking radio. So it does not support DMR or NXDN trunking. So it's a single channel conventional DMR or NXDN. It works well on those channels conventionally. No issues whatsoever. I monitored DMR, works fine. I've monitored NXDN, seems to work fine on that as well. So it works really well on both of those. Keep in mind, with digital, with any radio, it's either going to be a crystal clear signal, hiccup, or nothing at all. So keep in mind, if you're on the fringe of a digital system, that basically means that, you may have some issues with the system if you're on the fringe of it. Where on analog, you can hear through the static, on a digital radio, it's binary code. It's zeros and ones being transmitted. And if any of those binary code zeros and ones drop off, that means that your radio is going to either blurp, 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 or go silent. One of the two. So definitely keep that in mind with digital. Typically, when you're within range of the system, it sounds really good. So I would highly recommend it. Is there a chat where people go to report special locomotives coming through the area? Casey is asking this. So there's a whole bunch of Facebook groups that you can join out there. There's also the Heritage Unit app, which you can download onto your smartphone. And then there's the Heritage Unit website, which you can see where all the Heritage Units are. Keep in mind that's basically reported by fellow rail fans. So for me, I'm Train Aficionado on the Heritage Unit app. So anytime that I'm out, if I do see a Heritage Unit, I will post where it is, and then hopefully the next rail fan will report it. And then that allows us other rail fans to be able to track the train and be able to see where it is and if it's coming to the area. But typically, a couple of things that I recommend for tracking Heritage Units and special locomotives is one, the Heritage Unit app, and then of course there's a whole slew of Facebook groups out there that are localized, to particular lines or particular railroads. So definitely join one of those Facebook groups if you're on Facebook. But that's probably one of the best ways to be able to track them. Let's go rail fanning. Looking for a show going behind the scenes. I've talked about that. I've actually thought about that. I've never talked about it. But yeah, definitely that's something that I probably could do at some point. Doing a behind the scenes look of what it looks like in front of me and what the editing studio looks like. And even maybe, like a little bit of behind the scenes of what it's like out rail fanning. There's a whole lot of waiting, depending on what part of the country you're in and how frequently the trains come. The biggest thing that I noticed that when I'm out rail fanning is you get the general person that's not a rail fan. Like I was in High Bridge, Kentucky last week. Hey, do you know when the next freight train's coming? No, they're not. They don't run on a schedule like passenger service. I mean, they do run on a schedule, but they're not a set schedule where they need to arrive at a station at an approximate time because it's picking up passengers. It'll run daily as soon as the train's built and it's able to head out. It'll head out. For the most part, some trains can run somewhat on a schedule, but, it varies. Maybe they leave 10 o'clock out of the yard one day, and maybe the next day, because they're waiting on a crew, it could leave at 11:30. So it varies. Let's see. All right, I think I've answered a vast majority of the questions. If you have any more questions, post them in the comments. What I'm going to do right now is run through a couple of slides, and then we'll return back for any of the last-minute questions. Let's see. So I use a free rail fanning app. It's like a radio, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. So Broadcastify has a scanner app. Keep in mind that is only going to be great for the area that the scanner is actually located in. So if the scanner is located in downtown Cincinnati and you're up at Hamilton, Ohio, you're only going to hear radio traffic that's local to downtown Cincinnati. So anything that's going on in downtown Cincinnati, you're going to be able to hear that. But you're not going to be able to hear the local communication that's going on in Hamilton, Ohio, unless there's another scanner feed there. So what I recommend, get a scanner, because you're going to be able to hear the local communications. Not only, the local trains that are communicating to one another or to the dispatcher, you'll be able to hear the engineer callouts, any defect detectors that are along the line. You'll be able to hear those locally as well. So for a rail fan, you can start out by using some of these free apps, these scanner apps, but you may want to eventually invest into a scanner, because that allows you to be able to hear a lot of things over the radio. But it doesn't hurt listening to those scanner apps, because you're able to get familiar with the communications, and maybe you want to hear what's going on in Cincinnati, so you can kind of prepare yourself with what's coming ahead to you in Hamilton, for example. Let me go to a couple of slides here, and then what we'll do is we'll wrap up the Q&A and go from there. So make sure you follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, aka X. I haven't updated the slide. At Train Aficionado. And then make sure you check out trainaficionado.com. A whole bunch of stuff there, our blog, the trackside guides, more things coming to the website. There's a couple of things that I have in mind that I may be adding additional things to the website, so keep that in mind. If you're in the Cincinnati area, our next Buckeye Bluegrass Express 2024 tour stop will be the Sugar Shack by the Tracks in Laughlin, Ohio. It'll be another railfan meetup. Stop by anytime from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Get yourself an ice cream and hang out trackside. I will be there for the full 3 hours, so you can, of course, talk to me about scanners, rail fanning, or anything you want. I will be there from 6 to 9, and that's Wednesday, May the 29th. I may broadcast live from there for about 15 minutes or so. I'm thinking about doing that. It'll be kind of a quick live hit. I will let you guys know through social media if I do end up doing that. But yeah, you notice it's a Wednesday. Yeah, typically I'm sitting in this chair every Wednesday night, but it's the 5th Wednesday of the month, so I usually take that off. But in this case, I will be trackside rail fanning at the Sugar Shack by the Tracks in Laughlin, Ohio. And then on the following Saturday after that event, I will be in Whitten Place, which is right outside of downtown Cincinnati, from 8 a.m. until noon. I know the slide says 9, but it should be really 8. I will be there, rail fanning as well, so come out. If you need to learn more information about either one of these events, make sure you go to trainaficionado.com/events. If you just go to Train Aficionado, right on the top, the menu or the sandwich icon, which opens it up on a mobile phone, just click on the events and you'll be able to see these two events listed and be able to get an address and so forth, any additional information. So make sure you shop the swag shop. I've got all types of things there. Travel mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, you name it. trainaficionado.com, and then go up to the shop and shop our swag shop. This helps us to upgrade equipment and be able to support, the website and, of course, the streaming software that we use to bring this broadcast to you each and every week in 4K. We're looking for your favorite rail fanning spots, so email them, railfanspots@trainaficionado.com. That's railfanspots@trainaficionado.com. So Include a brief description of your favorite rail fanning spot and a couple of photos so we can show this on a future broadcast, some of your favorite rail fanning spots. That was tonight's broadcast. So we talked about setting up your scanner for the railroad. So basically the layout of the radio and how to lay it out so it'll make sense. These are certainly some great suggestions. We will probably end up doing a video on how to program your 160 and 260DN manually, and then of course through software. So as soon as I get some time, I'll sit down and put together those videos, and then those will be produced videos on the channel, so you'll be able to see how to program those channels. The Railroad Crossing app, that is another app I do have on my phone. Yeah, I use that all the time. I mean, there's several apps that I use. The Railway Map app, I do have the Crossing Locator. Of course, my good friends over at Railstream, I have their app on here as well, so if I want to watch any of their cameras. And speaking of cameras, and I just wanted to give our friends over at the Cincinnati Railroad Club a bit of a plug. They actually have a camera of their own that's located in the Cincinnati Union Terminal. So let me just show that right now on the screen. So we can see it right there. That is the camera for them. They actually have two cameras. They have one that's positioned in one spot and then another position in another spot. They're both looking at the yard in the northern direction. One of the one of them actually has a scanner feed on it, which I provided a BCT15X to the club. I donated it, and you can hear the railroad audio coming through on the camera along with the environment sound, which is pretty cool. So you can see a lot of containers there. We've got several trains that are intermodal there in the yard tonight. So definitely check out the Cincinnati Railroad Club's YouTube channel. This is a live view right now. As you can see, it's about 54 minutes past the hour, and we're live. And it's starting to get dark here in Cincinnati, but this is a live view of the camera. But thank you so much for everyone joining the broadcast tonight. I really appreciate everyone watching. We will certainly be doing some more great shows in the month of July. So keep it right here. Subscribe to the channel. If you can, give us a thumbs up as well. Greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this after the live broadcast, feel free to post a comment in the comment section. If you're interested in the 160, 260, or the 125 AT, there's an affiliate link to Scanner Master down in the description where you can actually purchase the radio through them, and I get a small percentage of the sale, which is nice. There's also the Sofware link, which is BuTel. ARC 125 is, of course, for the 125, and ARC 260 is for the 260 and the 160DN. And then, of course, if you're a fan of ProScan, that works as well for programming these radios. So pick, whatever software you want. I don't have an affiliate link to ProScan, but definitely keep that in mind. And I'm just trying to think of anything else in there. Oh, yeah, the Railroad AAR channels. The list is on the website. There's a link right to that page, the AAR channels. So definitely check that out in the description as well. But that should wrap it up for me this evening. We will take one more look at the yard in Cincinnati, and then we will wrap up this show right now as the camera is auto-adjusting to the light changes there. as it gets darker in Cincinnati. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to you guys about rail fanning, and of course, you know, when the two hobbies collide, scanners and rail fanning, we greatly appreciate it. Yes, the stream is actually open to the public. It's on YouTube. You can find it on the Cincinnati Railroad Club's YouTube channel. So that's where I'm pulling it actually from their YouTube channel. So that was a live look at the camera right there. So it is open to the public. So thank you so much for joining. I'm Jonathan Higgins for Train Aficionado. Have a great night. Catch us next week for the Scanner Guys. I'll be live next Wednesday, which is the 22nd, with another edition of the Scanner Guys show. So be safe out there. Happy rail fanning. The weather is finally better for the most part, so get out there and watch some trains. So we'll catch you again next week for the Scanner Guys, and then we'll be back in July for Train Aficionado Live, starting off the month. And then, of course, you know, we'll have our two shows for Train Aficionado, the first and third Wednesday, and then the second and fourth Wednesday with the Scanner Guys. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. We'll catch you again next time.